Live on YouTube. For all those YouTube viewers, welcome to the show. We're just getting started. Ed's on hiatus. If you're wondering why he's not sitting next to me, he's taking a mini vacation.
Is it a staycation?
I guess it is a staycation. All right, so now that that's rolling, okay, we're hot on Zoom. Now I'm going to hit record here.
I don't need a blazer suit on for this, do I?
No jacket required.
No jacket required. I like it.
Remember? That was a Phil Collins album.
It was. It was a very nice album of Phil Collins.
All right. Okay, are you ready? Because I'll kick it off.
Let's go. I'm ready.
All right. Welcome to The Funniest Thing, where each week we share stories about how stepping out boldly always leads to better than expected outcomes. I'm Daryl, and Ed is on vacation, but we have a very special guest today, a return guest, Jeff Spikes. And today's topic is, like it or not, you're an influencer, with our guest, Jeff Spikes. And just to be clear, by today's definition, an influencer is a person who uses their online reputation, expertise, or position to impact the actions and purchasing decisions of their audience. However, in reality, you're an influencer. Like it or not, you are, we all are, continuously influencing our circumstances. Everything around you reflects your attitude toward it and acts accordingly. When you speak negatively of your affairs, you are misusing your special power of faith. Faith has been defined as joyful expectancy, which is my favorite definition. Having faith or joyful expectancy in God at work in our life is having faith in good outcomes. Yes, folks, we're allowed to believe in good outcomes. On this episode, we delve into how psychokinesis is faith in action. And Jeff Spikes highlights how optimism and faith are synonymous. And today's reading is going to be Magic is Happening. But before we get too far along, I want to thank everyone on Patreon for contributing to the show. Thanks to you, this show remains commercial free. That's right. And a lot goes into the show, and all of your contributions help make that all happen. Also, consider yourself a friend, whether you're on Patreon or not, and you could always send us an email with any questions or any funniest things that happened in your life as or demonstrations or miraculous outcomes as a result of applying faith towards your situations. We'd love to hear them. We also would enjoy reading them on the air. And also, if you like to mail us something, you could mail us postcards, letters to Funniest Thing, P.O. Box 1312, Culver City, California, 90232. And our website is darylanded.com. I have two postcards real quick from Germany. This is from a listener, and he's also been a guest on the show, Kirk Kelson. The first one, and this is really, he draws on these postcards. Now, keep in mind, Kirk Kelson was someone who thought he couldn't draw, and I encouraged him to draw. I said, yeah, anyone can draw. And I encouraged him to get these bamboo pens online and some India ink. And he's been going to town. On this one, it's the classic two fists in your face, those people who normally get the tattoos on their knuckles. One side says hate and the other side says love. Well, on this one, he wrote on the knuckles, Fuzz Life for Fazaro. And if you're listening via audio apps and you want to see what these look like, just tune into our YouTube channel. So on the back, he writes, "No man can think clearly when his fists are clenched." And that's by George Jean Nathan. And he wrote on the bottom, he wrote, "No clenched fists, open arms." And that's how we want to go through life, with enough faith that we can go through life with our arms wide open instead of always preparing for a fight, which is a lot to do with our topic today. What we prepare for in mind is what we receive in kind in our reality. On the other postcard, he wrote the unicorn, or he drew with this written on it, "The unicorn will not do chores." And that's from an Emmett Fox reading we've read from about the unicorn. And the unicorn is your intuitive thought that comes to you that seems like an outrageously too good to be true idea for you to act on. And the story in the unicorn in the Bible means don't second guess it, jump on the unicorn, because it'll take you someplace so much better than you could have willed yourself into. So that's on the front. And on the back, he wrote, "Every time I trust in God, do the next right thing, think what I can give, and turn it over, including results, I'm free." And isn't that the truth? So, that being said, I'm going to welcome today's guests. I got some readings here, but Jeff, how you doing?
Fantastic, man. I'm excited to be here. I love Ed. I'm got to throw him props, but I'm happy to be here as part of a duo instead of a trio. If anyone can replace him, I'm grateful, and not replace, but if anyone can take his place for a day, I'm grateful I get to be one of those people.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this topic. It came to mind on Wednesday, this idea of how faith really, how we're influencers. We're always influencing our circumstances with our attitude. And I wasn't thinking of the word influencer right away, but I was thinking about how it's a form of psychokinesis. You know, psychokinesis is the mysterious science of people who could do things with their minds.
Right.
And it's usually, relegated to magicians, right? Bending spoons, doing things like that, elevating
Bend a spoon?
chairs.
Can you do that?
No, I can't do that. But I have experienced how my attitude, which is the type of attitude, the definition I like of attitude is my mental approach to life in any situation. How am I approaching it mentally? And I got excited about this topic from two books. One I'm rereading, The Magic of Thinking Big. And if you're a strengths coach, Jeff, you should get this book on audio or read it. It's The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David J. Schwartz.
I literally have it right here, Daryl.
You're kidding me. Okay.
If it's not on this shelf, it's on the shelf in my front office. It's in one of these two shelves.
Oh, so
I'm going to laugh if it's right here.
So I've been rereading it, and rereading a book after a couple of years or months even, you tend to see things that weren't in there before, helpful things that you didn't even realize the last time you read it. And I attribute that to development. It means that you're growing. We're all growing. And now I see things that can help me at this stage.
I read that book. I could dig into that book once a year at a minimum. It's
so good.
Timeless.
So in here, and in a secular way, he shares how true our belief or our mental approach about anything will affect the results. And here he says, and this, if you have the book, it's on page 85 in the chapter How to Think and Dream Creatively. When you believe, your mind finds ways to do. When you believe something is impossible, your mind goes to work for you to prove why. But when you believe, really believe, something can be done, your mind goes to work for you and helps you to find the ways to do it.
Right.
Belief releases creative powers. Disbelief puts the brakes on. Believe, and you'll start thinking constructively. Your mind will create a way if you let it. And the other book, well, there's a couple here, but one of the other ones that drove this home is a classic we read from often on the show, and I highly recommend The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity by Catherine Ponder. And she's saying the same thing in another way. Everything reflects your attitude. When you speak negatively of your financial affairs, you are misusing your special power of psychokinesis. You mentally and verbally influence everything in your world. Remember that everything around you reflects your attitude toward it and reacts accordingly. And she gives two examples. One is how to actually apply faith in a way where we can use the fun word psychokinesis, because it's all psychokinesis. We're all influencing our reality with our perspective or our attitude, our mental approach.
The words we use, all kinds of things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're constantly projecting.
Yes, constantly projecting. And here's Charles Fillmore shares how to do this in a practical way. She quotes him, "Blessing the substance increases its flow." And substance is defined as the essence of all things. In metaphysics, it's actually the mind stuff. As our mind thinks faithfully, it starts to transform substance. As our mind thinks fearfully, it starts to also transform substance, but in the other direction. So one speeds things up in a positive way, and one slows things down because we're disconnected from the positive flow of life. And he writes, blessing the substance increases its flow. If your money supply is low or your purse empty, take it in your hands and bless it. See it filled with the living substance ready to become manifest. As you prepare meals, bless the food with the thought of spiritual substance. When you dress, bless your garments and realize that you are being constantly clothed with God's substance. The more conscious you become of the presence of the living substance, the more it will manifest itself for you. And the richer will be the common good of all. What do you think of this stuff, Jeff? You think it's a little
there's
out there?
There's been so many readings and writings over this stuff over the years, and it's all called so many different things that it can make it really elusive, right? The psychokinesis, when you look it up, comes up with two things. It's mind over matter and influence over objects. And either way you look at that, right? The placebo effect, there's a big question, right? Why do 30 or 40% of people naturally have ailments healed with a sugar pill? Because they believe they're getting a medication, right? So understanding that we know that these things work, right? So then this mind over matter piece of, is it our physical, is it our physical selves? Is it a spoon? There's a thought process that says, if it's material, it's temporary.
Yes.
It doesn't have the soul. It doesn't have the being sense to it. And if you think it doesn't have mind to it, and a lot of scientists are talking about on a cellular level now what those things mean, but it's more about an interconnectedness, which is how people get confused. They think quantum is big, but it's only big because it's the interconnectedness of all things at the smallest structure. And so this really gets into this mind-blowing thought of, and knowing the power of the unconscious mind, knowing that our minds can operate much greater than we ever could imagine. Then, and knowing that the unconscious could store, define, put anything anywhere. It doesn't even have to be to this realm, right? It could, the unconscious mind can store something in a storybook, right? That someone read, and then now they're living a life in a thought process of a storybook. But it's, so knowing that, then why not? I think there's more of a question of why not open our minds to the ideas of the possibilities of what all this means? Because today you have great examples, whether it's Wim Hof, able to hike in high elevations in a shorts and a pair of hiking boots, right? And keep his body warm, regulate his own body temperature, and teach others to do it. You have Joe Dispenza that started by studying the placebo effect, that now is doing these meditations that are just mind-boggling about the true possibilities of what the mind can do, and brain mapping people as cancer and other diseases in the body are healing. So it's, why not believe? And what do we need to put labels on it for? Psychokinesis or telekinesis, or there's so many definitions of what it is. There's remote viewing, right? David Morehouse, to this day, was one of the early adopters in the CIA doing remote viewing, and he teaches it now. It's all these mental abilities are just there, right? So in the 1937s, in 1930 or 1930s, I'm sorry, Magic of Thinking Big is getting me there. He wrote it was another Napoleon Hill.
Yes.
Right? And he was interviewing people remotely. He was interviewing people by talking to them and listening to their answers, right? And that didn't get revealed until the last 10 years when they finally published the last book they published, and about his conversations with the devil, right? And it was the name of the book is escaping me, even though I have 10 copies of it. And it's, so I'm on kind of a rant in some ways, but there's more evidence to argue with. And if we're arguing with things, then we're substantiating the reality of it. And back now to the idea of being an influencer, if we're connected to anyone at all, we have an influence over them. It's my good friend Bev that founded the BALM method, the Be a Loving Mirror method, of helping families deal with the opioid, addiction issues in their home with opiates and all these other things. There's this connectedness there that she talks about, of this loving connection that transcends all this crazy thought and all these opinions we have, and that she teaches that we're having an influence. We can amputate and say, or we can try and control. Either way, if we ignore someone forever, we've already had a relationship. There's been an influence, and we have an influence. So anything else is denial and delusion. So if we know we have an influence over others, we're clear we have an influence over ourselves. And we were just talking in a strength summit earlier today about rejection is protection.
Yeah. Oh, I heard
said,
this one. Wait, before you go further, I'm going to throw another one at you. One of our guests shared years ago this young college girl becoming an attorney. Oh my goodness, her name escapes me. But anyway, she said this: rejection is redirection, which is another way to say it. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought that was good to throw in there.
That's totally right. And instead of because it's only rejection if we take it as rejection. So the other way I like to say it is rejection is projection. I'm projecting something that's getting a rejection. If I can be more flexible, and I'm helping someone get what they want and see that they want it, it is a redirection, not a rejection. It's a so and these are absolute thoughts we're having that people could you could easily go, oh well, in this case that's not true, and in that case, but the idea, I throw all that mud on the wall to say we're absolutely influencing each other. We're absolutely influencing the outcome of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
We're influencing the problems we're creating. And if we can stop making other people our problem and understand that we're our own source of struggle and challenge and problems, then a lot of problems go away in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yesterday, excuse me. Yesterday, Lori and I had an appointment to get her exchange ID to go on the military base here. I spoke to you briefly about it yesterday.
Yeah.
When we were talking. So, it took me a while to figure out what was going to be needed, and then making an appointment wasn't the easiest to navigate through the website. But that being said, I took it in stride, piece by piece, and miracle by miracle. And this is another thing, folks. The joy is in the overcoming.
Mm.
Instead of letting each of these things sink my battleship, there's like joy in the overcoming and having the demonstration of it working out. All it is I'm just overcoming my limited thought about what this is, what I'm perceiving this to be at this moment. But as long as I keep reassuring myself throughout the process that everything's working out together as it should, and okay, well, I can't go in this direction. Maybe there's another direction. And then things come to your mind once you're open, like Dr. Schwartz said. Once I'm open and giving my mind permission to think of other positive options or a solution, well, then solutions come to mind. But if I keep cursing the thing, it shuts down. So that all being said, it said, set up for appointments, all this jazz. We got an appointment about a month away from when I was able to figure all that out. And it was for yesterday, October 3rd at 1:00 in the afternoon. So I didn't get email. I did get a text right away when I made the appointment way back when. So I was like, oh, shoot, am I going to need that to prove, to get on base with Lori? Because we had to go on to the military base here to get her ID. So long story short, I end up yesterday, the day before, Thursday, getting a text. Okay, your appointment is tomorrow. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's all dialed in. In the meantime, we got all our documents in order, marriage license, marriage certificate, her birth certificate. She had her driver's license. I have my ID card. So it says, okay, your appointment's tomorrow. Well, I got up very early yesterday for some reason, and I did my morning routine, and then I looked at my phone, and there was a text message that said, due to the furlough, our new hours are 7:30 to 12 p.m., and my appointment was at 1. So I was like, uh-oh. First thing was a little minor roadblock, like, uh-oh. But here's the thing. And I want to say about how do you influence things or get yourself out of the loop of thinking problem thinking, like there's problems. Oh my God, how much this is going to be a problem. To no, this is going to work out. Because if I'm going to influence my reality, I have to believe that when I choose to believe in a positive outcome, I'm joining forces with God, good. And when I'm choosing to believe that there's going to be hurdles the whole time, I'm not I'm not cooperating, let's say, with God, right? So that came to mind. This because in the morning I started thinking, okay, is this going to work out? We got to get there. We got to get through the gate. We got to stop at the guardhouse. I was already starting to see hurdles, and my mind was starting to scheme. Like, okay, I'll overcome this because we'll bring this idea. We'll do this, and I don't like that feeling anymore. So how do I get out of that and really dig into cooperating with good outcomes? And there's one way for me to do that. I have to get out of being concerned about what I need to get and evaluating why I'm not getting it. I have to go right into giving. I have to become concerned about giving. Okay, so how do you give in a situation? You're at home, you're sitting there, you did your routine, now you're thinking these thoughts. And some people can say, well, you're realistically planning. No, I'm realistically worrying. There's a big difference. and scheming in my mind. So it dawns on me, pray for everyone at the base. Pray for everyone pray for that base. That base is joyful, happy, successful. Everyone meet there is friendly. They feel great about themselves. I was just blessing the hell right out of my worry. And then I get that text that says, do the furlough. I'm like, furlough? So I guess the government shutdown happened. And it said, our new hours, 7:30 to 12, but we will still be seeing appointments. And I'm going, wait a minute, if they're closing at 12 and our appointment's at 1, what does this mean? So instead of panicking, I call up. I've had the number in an email. They gave it to me. And I asked the lady, I go, I let her know we have an appointment today, but it's at 1 o'clock. And she says, okay, yeah, we'll still see, we'll still be able to see you. I said, even after 12 o'clock? She said, yes. And I said, okay. I said, then I asked a question that I had. Can I just drive in with my wife in the car since we have the appointment, or do we have to stop at the guard shack? And she goes, no, you're going to have to stop at the guard shack. So I said, okay. How long does that usually take? Because I want to prepare. And she goes, well, that can take a while. And I said, really? Well, what do you mean by a while? And she said, well, they're closed from noon to 1 for lunch. The guardhouse is completely shut down from noon to 1. And I go, well, our appointment's at 1, so we'll be late for our appointment. She said, well, you could come a little late. That's okay. Or you could come early. Okay. So I said, you mean we could come early, like at 11:30? Oh, yeah. And then I asked, because you got to ask these questions instead of just going, okay, and not asking. I said, okay, so if we come at 11:30, will you be able to see us right away, or will we have to wait until our 1 o'clock appointment? And she said, no, you won't have to wait. We'll see you right away. So we get there, and every couple of minutes, my mind would think that, wait, they might not see us at that time. So I kept blessing the base, and then a positive thought came. Yeah, so what? If they can't see you to 1, that's the time where you could show Lori the exchange. You could show her the commissary, which is the grocery store, and use that time and have fun, get a little lunch, and then go to your appointment. Well, guess what? Everyone was super nice. We flew right in. They told us right where to park. We get inside. We waited less than a minute, and they called our name. We're in there. We go through the whole process. And, it's still a little, intimidating. If you've ever been on a military base, and, it's, it's law and order. There's no, you can't help but feel I have to have all my T's crossed, all my I's dotted, right, Jeff? It has this, there's a vibe that you go, okay, my boots are polished. I have all the documents. But as they're looking at it, my mind's thinking, uh-oh. So Lori looked at me because she could tell I was having a little bit of concern over the way he was like reading over everything. And my mind's thinking silly thoughts, Jeff, like, well, does he realize that that's Lori's maiden name? So, of course, on the marriage certificate, it's not going to be Fazaro. Like, I'm thinking idiotic thoughts. Of course, the guy would know that. I'm not verbalizing it. So, you know what? I just sat down in the seat instead of standing up at this high desk because he was doing his thing, and let it go. He gets through. Lori's approved. She takes the photo. And then he sees my ID. He goes, you know, this ID you have here, you know, they've done away with these and they could confiscate them, you know, depending what base you go to, they'll just take it away. So I don't know if I recommend you get a new one. Do you want to, you know, is that something you want to come back to do? And I said, well, could I? He goes, or you could do it now. And I said, are you serious? Yes. This is the miracle. Had I not made this appointment, like I thought it was just for Lori, and yet it was for me as well. The appointment, what I'm trying to say is the influence I had by not really buying in. I'm not going to say you're never going to have these thoughts. In certain situations, some situations are more intimidating than others. And confidence or courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. Confidence means there's fear, but I'm putting more of my intention, more of my focus, my attention in faith. Courage is the same thing. It's moving forward in spite of the fear, you know, and you can't do that without hope or faith. And I was just saying, holy cow, like this thing, this idea to get Lori her card finally, was actually also something I needed to do. And that wasn't even a thought in my mind. And a couple of things I wrote to myself with that experience was having faith, expecting positive outcomes is cooperating with God. And I wrote, this was all for yesterday. Today I experiment with faith in only good, and I'm thrilled by miraculous demonstrations. Whenever you cooperate with God, you influence the world for the better. I'm an influencer, so that being the case, how am I influencing things for better or worse? Today, I am mindful of my influence as I ... And then I wrote my to-do list. And here's a great affirmation for you folks, a great one that I'm using. I influence my world with the goodness of God. And the easiest way to do that, if you're intimidated by a situation, is like how I practiced it yesterday. Bless it. Bless it. See how you could give. It doesn't have to be a physical activity. Although because I was in this frame of mind, Jeff, you know, someone dropped their ID card at the guardhouse and wasn't aware of it. So I was seeing like God was turning me, I was being preoccupied with how I could give, how I could be a positive influence. So I picked that up and they gave it to them. They were very grateful. Little things like that. So, you know, for this week, folks, I recommend being mindful. You're an influencer. And just be mindful as you go throughout your day. Am I being an influencer in this situation for better or worse? And this happens in mind. You know, it's in thought first. Before we hear some more from Jeff, I just want to read some real kick you upstairs stuff from this very old but very powerful book. It's called Scientific Christian Mental Practice. And it's about the use of these principles, seeing Jesus as the great example, not the great exception. And believe it or not, this was written in 1888. And she talks about the placebo effect all the way back in 1888. I'm going to read one example that I really enjoy about a doctor. She wrote, this one doctor, it was reported, laughed his patients well. Everything they said and did amused him so that he laughed uproariously. Patients would get to laughing in spite of themselves. He would sit and roll up bread pills or anything else that came handy and tell the patient that he was more scared than hurt, that he was resting up a little and would be all right soon. He took many a seemingly dying man and laughed him back to life, changed the groove of the patient's mind. And then she says this, which is because our thoughts, like Jeff was saying, it's all connected. Everything's vibration, but everything is interconnected. It's like a vibrational, like everything, this table, our bodies, it's these atoms, these electrons and neutrons, and there's more space between than there is not. It's just this bizarre reality that doesn't seem real, but if we could help our mind just accept it a little, it makes all these elements of faith and everything we're talking about more able to believe in the reality that my thoughts, my perception, and my perspective, which I have control over, does indeed influence immediately my body. I mean, when you have a thought of fear about a situation, there's any thought creates a chemical change in the body. Any thought, you know? I mean, if you're really attracted to someone, boom, your whole body responds. If you're afraid, even just thinking something fearful, if you're watching a movie, it's not even a real situation. It's a story. And your mind starts locking into the scary situation the character's in. You start feeling anxious. You start feeling afraid in the movie seat, in an air-conditioned room where there's no threat to you at all. So she writes, huh? Go ahead. I just want to read this last thing because this,
go ahead.
You'll be able to take it from here. Why should you say that God has afflicted you if saying such a thing makes you makes your breath a disease breeder? Why should you say that you feel unhappy if saying this shuts up a gate against the breath of the spirit of the morning of joy? Are you not a chooser of the thoughts you shall think? Have an hour in the morning for some special message to the world or about yourself. Have an hour in the afternoon for some words of truth to the world. These words will come to fruitage. No matter if you have a special tendency to some grief or your way is lonely and hard, tell the way of the Spirit so often that she comes stealing through you and you become a health giver and a cheer bringer. All is thought first. This science deals with the thoughts just as Jesus did, and then speaks of externals. What do you got to say to that, Jeff?
Man, when you read the whole thing, it just, the first instinct I have is to let it sink in. Just take a breath and let it sink in. Let the possibilities be there. And it's you're talking about the movies, and have you ever had an experience where you went somewhere that you had seen in the movies and it was entirely different? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I remember going to the beach in Mexico, and I had seen lots of movies of people that are on the beach in Mexico, and it's gorgeous and it's amazing. And I go to this beautiful part of Mexico. There's supposed to be whales out there. There's supposed to be all this stuff going on. It's this just gorgeous beach. And all I had ever seen was movies and videos, right? And it was somewhere on the Pacific, on the West Coast, right? And I don't even remember where, because I had to fly down there. But anyway, it was a long time ago. But the memory I have was that in the movies there was always some kind of soundtrack and music, and people were talking, and you couldn't really hear the wind. You might hear some birds and other things, but and when I get down, and there's no temperature other than the one in the theater, right? Or
Right.
in the house when we're watching it. So of course we're watching this and having this imagination of what it's going to be like in pure comfort. Well, then we get there and it's hot and sticky, and there's a dead seal
Oh,
that smells bad. And it was like, this is a terrible experience. And I was just laughing because I was thinking, the way I imagined it didn't have anything real. Now, at the same time, right, it was, how do we breathe into this and make it joyful? I wasn't as positive of a person at the time. So the fact then it got really windy, I think someone had a tent. So we all ended up on the floor of an RV somewhere, or on the floor of someone's house. And because we were excited to be on the beach all day, all night, we were going to camp out there, lounge out there, swim out there, do everything. And none of it ended up being possible. Right. So we had a physically uncomfortable time. But thinking about that, it's like, what do we make up in our minds? And then of course, as I leaned into how it was nothing like what it was, I just remember the whole night ended up being somewhat uncomfortable, right? And I've had other experiences. When I realize, what I do remember from that is that someone made the point, and I started to really think about how the mind works. And now I've had other experiences where, last year I was in Europe, and I had a couple of experiences where it was very different physically than what I thought it might. I had never considered what it might be like, but I was in a really positive space, so I leaned into it, and I ended up having an amazing time. And the scent, the smells, and there were people cooking and creating and making things, and I was in a little village where they were really doing a lot of things with their hands. There were all these people, and they're working and doing things with their hands, and I had a beautiful time connecting. So, but still, it was cold, and I had never thought of it being as cold as it really was, or you know, and it was just a different experience. But my mind was in a place of wanting to embrace and accept the beauty of it, and the difference of it, and the feel of it, and I had a beautiful time. So I'm not sure how that involves the influencer, other than being being in conjecture about what that could have been. But what I do know is that we can dream things up watching a movie, and a movie will take us on an emotional, mental, physical journey that we're having a full experience, and we can be put in an altered state, and all these things. And if that's possible with sound, with all the senses we have in a theater, then it's possible for us to do for ourselves anywhere.
yes.
And we can really bring that in. And you can point to extreme situations of this that I don't think are worth going, but of people that have been through horrific experiences and written about how their attitude really was the difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
um it's like every immigrant. I'm about to read a book. I've ordered a book from a woman that I'll find the name of it, that it's Love is the Path. And she immigrated from Colombia, and not knowing the language, not knowing and went on this incredible journey, and she's written this book. And the whole message is that love is the path. Well, I know a lot of people that have immigrated to the US, and including my stepfather, who and other people. So, but not all people with that experience of coming here have a positive experience, or have an experience where they chose that love as the path. And some are in fear, and some are. So we all can go through the same type of experience and have very different, the same type of thing, right?
Yeah.
We can all go to the beach. We can all go to a ranch and experience cattle. We can all sit in a podcast. But we will all have our own experience. And the only real difference is our approach to it, our perspective. and what we're thinking, right? The choices we're making with the words in our mind. And so many people focus on, well, you have to use the right words, like what's coming over our through our mouth. But man, I'm telling you, I I can watch my words all day long. If I'm not paying attention to the words I'm telling myself, the
Yeah.
words I'm using to think, then this is really hard to control.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the thoughts we think. What am I telling myself about myself that's affecting the situation? What am I
Yeah.
telling myself about this situation? You know, if I find one thing that scares me or I don't think, or I don't like or I feel offended by in a situation,
Yeah.
thoughts are magnetic and they attract similar thoughts. And the good news is, if I catch myself thinking negatively about a situation or fearfully or intimidated, if I can switch it, just find one thing positive. And sometimes the best thing for me to do is stop. I'll even say it to myself, stop it. And then pray for that person, bless them, see how I can give in mind. You don't have, or the situation, bless it in mind with new thoughts, these thoughts of blessing the situation. All of a sudden, the situation starts to improve because that one thought of blessing it instead of cursing it starts attracting other like thoughts of this. Wow, this isn't so bad. Oh, look at this. Look at this. You didn't notice this. Holy cow. Thank God we came here because of this. Things start changing. I start influencing within my own mind. Speaking of that healthy attitude, can you read that reading?
Yeah.
Uh,
Let me pull
Magic
that
is
up.
happening.
I pulled up that book, so I knew what I was saying. Isn't that funny? So let me get back to, okay, so here we are. The I am cheerful, for God is at hand, right?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. I am cheerful, for God is at hand. Be cheerful today. Remember that God, who is all power, all good, all love, is present in your life. God's plan for you is abundant good. Refuse to dwell on negative things. Refuse to discuss anything in a negative light. Instead of giving thought and words to a problem, give attention to the solution. God is in every situation. God is in every person. God has ways we know not of to help us. Let me say that again. God has ways we know not of to help us. God will provide the strength and faith we need to conquer fear, handle our problems, and move us into abundant good. Be cheerful. Let go of every disturbing thought and emotion. Make yourself a clear, receptive channel through which the power of God flows to adjust and perfect that which concerns you. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. This is John 16:33. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world.
Yeah, and they forgot to record the last thing he said. And so can you.
Right.
Overcome the world, and so can you. I think that was the point of it. So, do you have anything else you want to say before we're coming to the close of the show? You have anything else you want to share?
No, I think it's a great encouragement to think through the idea that of how you're influencing, who you're influencing, especially within yourself. I think
Yeah,
it's a challenge we could all take on, looking in the mirror and really really seeing where we're at. We think about, so many of us are sitting on our phones and scrolling, and I get trapped by it. I have a daily routine where I go into my phone and copy and paste a thing and start
Yeah.
filling it out. And there's some mornings that I just get stuck just going to look at my sleep and I see an alert and all of a sudden I'm in a 10 or 15 minute thing going, wait, why was I sitting here? Right. So, but we don't really realize anymore that it's important to stay in a zone of being a creator and influencer in these things, not just in the way that it's framed by society, but in who we are and what we're doing, because otherwise, in how things are framed in society, we're becoming a product.
Yes.
People are making money by us sitting there scrolling, so we become the product that's being sold. The fact that this has my attention
Yeah.
makes me a product. And I think that we can be that in moments, right? That we can let go of some of these constructs and moments and relax and just be okay. But it's such a nice life to consider, how are we influencing ourselves and others? How are we participating? What are we creating? The God in us flowing through us, is there. My main thing I focus on these days when I'm speaking and doing other things is the truly authentic thing of every person. Is there call it ACP, APC, your approach, your perception, and the choices you make. Those are the three things. Otherwise, we're all so much the same. There's
Yeah.
so many similarities.
Oh, yeah.
We're connected.
Oh my God. Do you know there's a great quote that sums that up beautifully from, I think his name is W. Clement Stone. Anyway,
Okay. You want to look that up?
and he says this: there is very little difference among people, but that little difference makes a big difference. And that little difference that makes a big difference is attitude, or like you said, the approach. So, with that being said, I want to say thanks for everyone for tuning in. And I got a little story here about Jeff. We found this one in the archives. And yeah, I'm going to read it. You may or may not remember this. Little Jeffrey was in church one Sunday with his mother when he began to feel ill. Mommy, he asked, can we leave now? No, his mother replied. Why? I think I have to throw up. Then go out the front door and around to the back of the church and throw up behind a bush, she said. Little Jeffrey left, but he returned just a few seconds later. Did you throw up? Mom asked. Yes, said little Jeffrey. How could you get back so quickly? I didn't have to go out of the church, Mommy. They have a box next to the front door that says, for the sick. Oh, man. Well, thanks so much for joining the show, Jeff. And thank you all for listening. And remember, if you're a listener, consider yourself a friend. Give us a like. Give us however many stars you think we deserve on any of the apps you listen or watch us on. Make a comment. We love your comments and all that jazz. And thanks again for being a part of Funniest Thing with Daryl and Ed. Until next time, we'll see you later. All right, Jeff.
Good stuff, man.
I'll talk to you in a little bit. I'll give you a call.